Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Canal Algérie's nightly news. On to the headlines. The Foreign Affairs Minister Ahmed Attaf chairs the unveiling ceremony of a commemorative plaque in Tunis, being the house of the Maud Ministry and the Algerian Provisional Government. The Malian junta, led by Goita, is driving the country into chaos, violating the constitutional legitimacy and defying the people's will. Gaza is always the target of the Zionist attacks, while Palestinians are haunted by the specter of famine, given the ongoing blockade. Welcome back. First off, the Premier Nadir Al-Arbawi chaired a government meeting devoted to monitoring the progress of the implementation of the emergency program decided by the President of the Republic relating to the supply of drinking water to several provinces, in particular through the mobilization of water resources, the rehabilitation expansion, and the monitoring of equitable distribution. The government followed the presentation on the establishment of a quality system within the higher education institutions based on a set of mechanisms and systems aimed at enabling these universities to achieve high levels of excellence and ensuring their compliance with international standards in governance, training, research, and innovation. The government also continued its review of the bill on retirement for teachers in the national education system. In the same setting, the government examined the bill establishing the general rules for the use and operation of beaches for tourism in accordance with standards of quality and professionalism, with the implementation of a tourism development plan establishing the characteristics and the elements of their organization and their valorization. Tasked by the President of the Republic, the Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, arrived today in Antalya, Turkey to represent Algeria at the 4th edition of the Antalya Diplomatic Forum, scheduled to open tomorrow. This year's Antalya Forum, held under the theme Restoring the Role of Diplomacy in a Divided World, will feature at least 10 workshops to discuss numerous current issues and matters. The workshops will be attended by government officials, representatives of international organizations, and influential figures in the academic and media fields. On the sidelines of the forum, Minister Attaf is expected to hold bilateral talks with foreign ministers of brotherly, friendly, and partner countries, as well as with officials from several international organizations. At the end of his official visit to the Tunisian Republic, the Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, presided over the unveiling ceremony of a commemorative plaque at the headquarters of the Algerian Consulate General in Tunis, which had housed the offices of the Ministry of Armaments and General Liaison Malk of the Provisional Government of the Algerian Republic, GRPA. This initiative, which is part of the implementation of the President of the Republic's guidelines for the preservation of national memory, aims to pay tribute to the sacrifices of the members of the Algerian Liberation Ministry, not the valiant martyrs and the brave mujahideen, and to their tireless efforts during the glorious liberation revolution. On this occasion, Attaf inspected the services of the Consulate General, while he inquired about the services provided to our nationals in Tunisia. He also met with members of the parliament from the Algerian diaspora and representatives of the community movement, with whom he discussed the concerns of Algerian citizens living in Tunisia. Nunes Mogerman, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, co-chaired the 5th Algerian-Russian political consultations in Moscow with Mikhail Bogdanov, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister and Special Representative of the Russian President for Africa and the Middle East. The meeting is part of the ongoing implementation of the declaration of the in-depth strategic partnership signed by the presidents of the two countries in 2023. Numerous regional and international issues of mutual interest were discussed, including the latest developments in the Sahel region, developments in the Middle East, the Palestinian and Western Sahara issues. The two parties agreed to continue close coordination to promote bilateral relations between the two countries in various fields. At the invitation of his Italian counterpart Matteo Piantedosi, the Minister of Interior, Local Collectivities and Territorial Planning, Brahim Red, arrived in Naples to participate in the quadripartite coordination meeting on issues related to irregular migration, which brings together the interior ministers of Algeria, Italy, Tunisia, and Libya. The meeting will be an opportunity to evaluate the level of cooperation between the four countries, particularly in the field of security coordination and the fight against cross-border crimes, particularly irregular migration and human trafficking, as well as the effectiveness of operational measures taken since the last quadripartite meeting in May of last year. The recent actions of Mali's coup junta play into Morocco's hands, threatening the Sahel and neighboring countries, yet Algeria has always been a loyal ally to Mali. Manan Mafa with more.
In a bid to divert international attention, the Malian junta has withdrawn from the peace agreement and extended the transition period after declaring itself sovereign over a nation in deep socio-economic crisis. Blaming Algeria for its repeated failures, the regime reveals its own inability to manage a crisis it is now desperately trying to export.
C'est une clique qui est inconstitutionnelle et qui est illégitime.
It is an unconstitutional and illegitimate clique of military officers who failed against terrorism and hijacked the justice system by forming militias and claiming to speak for the Malian people. They have taken Mali hostage after an unforgivable coup. Supporting such junta is unjustifiable.
Qui tue des Maliens, qui ont recruté une milice paramilitaire, des mercenaires.
Far from being neutral, the Makhzen's involvement in the diplomatic rift between Algeria and Mali confirms Morocco's long-standing maneuvers against Algeria. By positioning itself as a situational ally of Mali, training Malian soldiers on its soil and enabling the use of armed drones, Rabat aims to weaken Algiers on a key strategic front. This military support is not an isolated act, but part of a broader policy of interference targeting both Algeria and regional stability.
Et ce que j'ai dit à l'État marocain qui glisse.
The Moroccan state is interfering in Mali's internal crisis between the junta and the people. I warn Rabat to stop this meddling. Mali is now ruled by a clique that seized power and has alienated its neighbors, Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, Senegal, Mauritania and now Algeria.
Ses voisins, la Côte d'Ivoire, le Bénin, le Sénégal, la Mauritanie et maintenant l'Algérie.
Le Maroc est en train de vous mener en bateau.
Morocco is leading you on. It is settling scores with Algeria and being used by NATO to undermine an Africanist strategy aimed at strengthening unity.
Le Maroc est utilisé par l'OTAN.
Divide and rule, a motto that seems to guide the Makhzen, driven by an unhealthy obsession to undermine the good neighborly relations Algeria has long maintained with its regional partners. Morocco positions itself as an external player, exploiting regional fractures to expand its influence in the Sahel. As always, its involvement is indirect yet telling, revealing a broader strategy to contain Algeria's influence, an influence rooted in Pan-Africanism, a cornerstone of its diplomacy. Unlike Morocco's opportunistic moves, Algeria's approach to its neighbors is based on historical principles, not short-term interests.
Indeed, Assimi Goïta is leading Mali towards an uncertain future. The coup leader, who came to power by force, has since trampled on constitutional legitimacy and the will of the Malian people. Manan Maafa again.
Assimi Goïta, leader of the military junta in Bamako, cannot erase the footage and recordings documenting his rise to power. He also cannot ignore that he was among the 80 prisoners freed through Algerian mediation, as revealed in a video by the Transitional Council. Once in the shadows of the Malian army, Goïta rose to prominence in 2020 when he overthrew elected President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. A year later, he staged a second coup against transitional President Bahandao and his Prime Minister, arresting them in Kati, the center of military uprisings.
La crâne rasée, ça c'est Assimi Goïta. Le monsieur crâne rasé, c'est Assimi Goïta.
Here's a video from 2012 showing Assimi Goïta's liberation after being held by the armed groups. In the footage, a man with a shaved head is Goïta. Though many doubted it, I have learned that he was indeed a hostage. This explains his rise to power and the current state of the country. Goïta has become then a dictator, undermining nomadic populations. We present facts and evidence, not propaganda. At the time, he claimed that they aimed to transfer power to civilian government. People must stop the hypocrisy.
Civil. Donc voilà, Il faut que les gens arrêtent leur hypocrisie.
Under international pressure, Goita promised to transfer power to civilians within 18 months, but nothing has been done. Clinging to power without electoral legitimacy or popular support, the junta's questionable ambitions are increasingly clear, which are far from its initial promise of national recovery.
La junte malienne au pouvoir depuis 5 ans.
5 years ago, the Human Rights Agency promised to secure our country, bring peace, organize elections and restore power. Yet today we are still in uncertainty. Assimi Goita is lost, self-serving and lacks strategic vision. How he became a military leader is beyond me. He does not deserve it. Once a prisoner in 2012, he now sees only war and bloodshed, while his leadership remains chaotic and propagandistic.
Une gestion chaotique, propagande.
Today, Mali is sinking deeper into instability with rising insecurity and political crisis. The people are suffering both at home and abroad. Those claiming to correct the course seem more focused on staying in power. But the question is, can the path be fixed when the starting point is already flawed?
Coming up in our news edition. The struggle of the Sahrawi women for freedom is illustrated by a documentary film depicting their brave role in clearing mines planted by the Moroccan forces. Welcome back. At the request of Algeria and Somalia, the UN Security Council held a meeting on the situation in Syria, an open session devoted to discussing the repercussions of the Zionist aggression against Syrian territories. Speaking on behalf of the A3+ group, Algeria's permanent representative to the UN, Ammar bin Jama, expressed concern about the dangerous Zionist escalation that has taken place in a critical time in Syria's history. The latest Zionist strikes have caused the death of 9 civilians and the destruction of infrastructure. The ongoing violence is exacerbating the humanitarian crisis and the displacement of Syrians and destabilizing neighboring countries. Bin Jama denounces these violations of international law and calls for the protection of the Syrian population and respect for Syria's territorial integrity, including the occupied Golan Heights. Zionist attacks continue in Gaza. Many areas in the sector are targeted. Today's down at least 4 Palestinians were martyred, while others are wounded following airstrikes. Famine is another major risk looming over the territory. Salim Mirah explains.
Since the beginning of the Zionist aggression on October the 7th, 2023, at least 50,000 people have been killed and tens of thousands more injured in the Gaza Strip, death toll that continues to rise daily. Over the past 24 hours alone, 40 bodies and 146 wounded individuals have been brought to makeshift medical facilities across the Strip, where the healthcare system is on the verge of collapse. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres reiterated today the urgent need to ensure the access of humanitarian aid to Gaza and emphasized the obligation to protect humanitarian personnel operating in the enclave devastated by relentless and brutal military aggression. Meanwhile, the Interparliamentary Union has unanimously adopted the resolution reaffirming support for the two-state solution and recognizing the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination. The resolution also acknowledges the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in Gaza, describing it as the result of genocide committed against the Palestinian people. In the occupied West Bank, the wave of arbitrary arrests continues. 15 Palestinians, including a journalist, a woman and several former detainees, have been arrested in various regions. Since October the 7th, 2023, the number is reaching 16,000, including those living in occupied Al-Quds.
In Morocco, people denounce the collaboration between the Makhzen and the Zionist entity that is committing a genocide against the Palestinian people. The latest example is the transport of a shipment of weapons from the port of Tangier to that of Haifa. Salim Mirah explains.
A ship carrying components for US F-35 fighter jets destined for the Zionist entity docked at the port of Haifa, coming from the port of Tangier. These weapons will likely be used in deadly raids on the Gaza Strip. In contrast, Spain has refused to allow such ships to dock at its port due to their disgraceful mission. The port of Tangier is increasingly under the control of the Zionist entity and is being exploited to serve its strategic interests. It is now regarded as an affiliated port, potentially serving exclusively the interests of this entity in the future. The suffering of the Moroccan people continues to worsen as a result of the normalization of relations between the Makhzen and the Zionist entity, an alliance forged regardless of the future of the Moroccan people, who are sinking further into poverty. Not a day goes by without dozens of Moroccans being evicted from their homes, forced to watch helplessly as their houses are demolished. These families suffered to build their homes, and now they are powerless, watching everything they built destroyed before their eyes. Major Moroccan cities are the scene of regular mass demonstrations against a government involved in corruption and a Makhzen that continues to target its own people, many of them deprived of their basic rights.
Sahrawi women, like men, fight for independence and survival, as shown in the Arte documentary film. It highlights their work in minefields along the Wall of Shame in Western Sahara, risking their lives for their community. Full story with Manal Mahfouz.
In this RT documentary film, we are taken to Western Sahara, Africa's last colony, a forgotten, non-autonomous territory. Its people have been fighting for independence for nearly 50 years, their hopes focused on New York, awaiting a solution to end colonial rule and fulfill their aspirations. I am over 59 and I continue the fight because I have no choice. Morocco occupies our land without cause. As long as we stand, the fight will go on and our children and grandchildren will continue after us. Colonial forces have mined Sahrawi soil without hesitation. Through the testimonies of Sahrawi women, this report exposes the struggle of a people facing landmines along the Wall of Shame. Ondura Fkroun is one of the female deminers. She risks her life daily to clear explosives surrounding the 2,700 kilometers wall built by the Makhzen. When I enter a mined area, I am afraid. Over time, the fear fades. You just do your job. The report also follows Feilah, who, like her mother, chose to join the Women's Brigade. I am following my mother's path, who fought in 1965 under worse conditions. She crossed the desert on foot, gathering water in her hands. After military training, she helped build society. Now my mother is too old, and it's our turn to fight for our land. This documentary highlights the often overlooked struggle of the Sahrawi people, who, through exile, resistance and heritage, preserve the memory of their people and the hope for a free land.
Sports now. CR Belouizdad consolidated its second position of the National Football Championship after beating GS Saura with 3-1 as part of the 22nd week. The second game of the Elite League, bringing ES Mustaganam to Olympic Atbu, ended in a 1-1 draw.
بوصوار متابعة خطيرة، الثالث للقناصي بوصوار، يبصم عن ثالث أهداف فريق شباب بلوزداد بعد متابعة.
End of our bulletin. Thank you for watching. Take care.